Die hele wêreld was onlangs aan die gons oor die groot verwoesting wat sikloon Idai in Mosambiek, Zimbabwe en Malawi gesaai het. Daar word daarna verwys as die grootste natuurlike ramp in die suidelike halfrond en ons vind vanoggend uit wat die huidige stand van sake met betrekking tot hierdie kwessie behels. Crystal Wells van die internasionale komitee van die Rooi Kruis is in Kenia en sluit nou by ons aan via Skype. So good morning and welcome to the program, Crystal.
Thank you so much for having me.
What is the current state of affairs with regard to the countries affected by Cyclone Idai?
I would say they are battered but rebuilding. I just got back from Mozambique yesterday where I was with our teams in Beta and Buzi, which were two of the hardest hit areas by the cyclone, as well as a town called Espunga Beta, which is in Mozambique, very close to the Zimbabwean border. And I would say you can see the damage from the cyclone in all of these towns in terms of downed houses, downed trees. In the more low-lying areas like Beta and Buzi, you can really see that they had a tremendous amount of flooding. You can see, the evidence of the storm surge, where in Espunga Beta, which is up in the mountains, they suffered more from landslides and high winds and the like. But you also, at the same time, amidst all of this devastation and destruction, you do see life slowly coming back to normal. Markets are open. People are, opening their small businesses, their restaurants. You thankfully now have a lot of the roads open again, which is really important for organizations like ours in terms of being able to get relief supplies out to some of these more remote areas. That was a huge challenge in the first, days and week after the storm. But the very sad reality is it's going to be a long, long recovery process for these communities.
So what are some of your main concerns at the moment in terms of the process to recovery?
There was an article in the Associated Press actually yesterday that I think put it perfectly. The article said, first you had the storm, then you had cholera. Now the next risk on the horizon is food insecurity, and that just explains it perfectly. There is a cholera outbreak currently in Mozambique. The current number of cases, I believe, stands at about 3,500 as of today. So that remains a real risk. So the Red Cross movement, so the International Committee of the Red Cross, along with our partners in the National Society and the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, are really focusing, trying to get clean water out to people to try and prevent new cases from occurring. But the other issue that's coming up is food insecurity. So this storm hit at a time that really couldn't be worse in terms of the planting season. So in Mozambique alone, about 700,000 hectares of planting land was totally destroyed. And you see it all along, the roadsides and in these communities that people had planted their crops and were getting ready for the harvest down the line, and all of this has been wiped out. And there's only now about 2 to 3 weeks left of a window to get people seeds for planting. So food insecurity is really the next big concern on the horizon. The humanitarian community is going to need to get seeds out to these communities quickly. We're also going to probably need to be providing food assistance for some time because they just lost most of their crops.
So we know that there's a long road ahead in terms of recovery, but what is the estimated timeline?
It's really hard to say. I mean, I'd say, you have to give a lot of credit to these communities in terms of their resilience. I mean, a lot of these really rural communities are already back rebuilding their houses, with having no outside assistance. They're already back to, piecing their lives back together. So people have good coping mechanisms on their own to be able to recover themselves. But in terms of the really big picture, I mean, I would think that people will probably need some level of food assistance for the coming year, because even if we get seeds out to people, the window to get seeds out is so small with 2 to 3 weeks. And then on top of that, just where the harvests work, the bigger harvests in some places will be lost. So I'd say these are communities that are going to need support really over the next year to kind of recover and sustain themselves.
I guess the big question is, are there any provisions that can be made in order to reduce the damage or effect of possible future disasters?
Yeah, I mean, this is really going to be a challenge for Mozambique. This is actually the second flood disaster that I've been to in Mozambique. I was there in 2015 when there were big flash floods from heavy rains around the Zambezi River. And a lot of Mozambique is low-lying. It's in a floodplain. So communities really are at risk and will continue to be at risk of floods from heavy rains and storms like Cyclone Idai. So I would say that there needs to probably be some kind of efforts to create some kind of early warning system mechanisms that tell communities, that a storm is coming. But even that is a challenge because, it's not like New Orleans in the United States where you can mass send out text messages and most of your community has easy access to cell phone network. I mean, it's a very large country. Huge pockets of it are very, very rural and remote. So to really create strong disaster preparedness mechanisms will be a challenge, honestly, for authorities and development organizations going forward. But it's needed, certainly.
So how and why would you motivate people to get involved or reach out and help where possible?
Yeah, so there's actually 2 points I'd like to speak to. One is how people can get involved, but the second is actually where really good efforts or really good intentions around disasters like this can actually be slightly misguided. And maybe I'll start with the latter. Following big natural disasters like Cyclone Idai or in the aftermath, say, of the Haiti earthquake or the earthquake that hit Nepal, the public sees these horrible images from the disaster zone, and it's only natural that people want to help, and it's important that people have that compassion to want to help. But it can also be slightly misguided in terms of, wanting to send, for example, relief items that just really aren't applicable to the local context. So, like, to give examples, like we saw in a number of places in Mozambique, volunteers wanting to come and give powdered milk, which sounds like a really lovely idea, but a lot of these communities don't have clean water. And it's now a place where there is cholera. So by giving powdered milk, it's kind of encouraging people to use the water sources they have, which may not be clean, and we can actually do more harm than good. So I guess I would say to those wanting to help, there are a lot of organizations on the ground right now that have a lot of expertise in disaster response. And I'd say just do your homework, find an organization that appeals to you and contact them directly for how you can best assist. They may want a certain kind of relief item, and then you could, purchase those or do some kind of fundraising in the community to provide that. At the International Committee of the Red Cross, we work as part of the larger Red Cross movement. So a way to get involved with the largest humanitarian network in the world is to actually go down to your local Red Cross branch, and you can sign up to be a volunteer. And that doesn't necessarily mean, you're on the next plane to Cyclone Idai, but the Red Cross movement does pull volunteers in disasters from neighboring countries really often. So that would be a way to get, involved in the wider Red Cross movement potentially for Cyclone Idai, but for other disasters in the future, including in your own country.
Crystal, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Dit was dan Crystal Wells van die internasionale komitee van die Rooi Kruis wat met ons gesels het oor die huidige stand van sake met betrekking tot Cyclone Idai.
Subscribe. Playlist. Subscribe. Playlist.